Hi, welcome again to another episode of Amazing Worlds. Traditional epic fantasy is deeply rooted in medieval Europe. So what if we advance that reference timeline forward a few hundred years to allow for technological changes? What about if we introduce gunpowder into our fantasy world? Would it add enough to make it more exciting? Would it add relevant, significant changes to structure, to plot, to confrontation? I'm talking about the Powder Mage Trilogy by Brian McClellan. So here I have it, the Powder Mage Trilogy by Brian McClellan, and we start with Promise of Blood, book number 1. The Crimson Campaign is book number 2, and things finish off with the Autumn Republic. So to begin with, I really like the covers. They are not drawings. They seem to be sort of heavily edited, photoshopped, real photos with an actor taking on one of the roles there, and they look really interesting and really appealing from the outside. I actually had the fortune of meeting Brian at a book signing, so I managed to get book 1, as you can see, dedicated, signed by Brian over there. And like every fantasy book, or every good fantasy book, we've got an overarching title, which is the Powder Mage Trilogy, and we've got our usual maps of the world. So it's not the best map necessarily. It doesn't look overly elaborate, but you know, it ticks the box for me. I like to trace the journeys of the characters there, so that's good. I've got my notes here as usual, so I'll be checking them and making sure I haven't missed anything out. So I'm talking about world creation. I found it a little bit disappointing. So the action takes place in a confrontation between 3 different countries after one of the main characters literally beheads the current king. So it's very much kind of French Revolution brought into fantasy world. But all those countries seemed quite interchangeable to me. There wasn't really a sense of you going to a foreign land and discover deeply different new cultures, and even though technically people in those countries spoke different languages, it was never an issue for the characters in the book. So the world creation seemed a little bit bland, and it didn't really go anywhere there for me. In terms of characters, there's 3 main points of view. So we start with Field Marshal Thomas, who is the general that beheads the king. That's the opening of book 1. We also follow his son, Taniel, who is a high-ranking officer in the army, and we follow a strange 3rd main POV character called Adamat, who is a private investigator hired by the field marshal to do something that I don't want to really go into, because I don't want to spoil the plot and the story here. My main issue with those 3 main characters is that I really found it very hard to find them likable. Field Marshal Thomas was a great character. I liked him, I liked his chapters, his point of view, and when he gets to interact with his bodyguard, who gets introduced later on in the books, there are some really nice, witty, clever, sort of bantery lines of dialogue there, and I did enjoy that. The next main character, his son, Taniel, I found him really hard to like. I didn't really feel invested with him. There is a romance there that feels shoehorned in. It almost feels like box ticking. We need to have a romance in the story, so let's make these 2 characters sort of fall for each other. It doesn't seem organic, it doesn't seem to grow naturally. So yeah, I found that a little bit disappointing. And the third main character, the investigator Adamat, he's got huge loads of potential there to find him likable. He's probably the one that goes through the most dramatic storyline from his personal point of view. When I was reading the books, I almost couldn't wait for his chapters to finish and move on with the story. Maybe it's because his action takes place in a very narrow confine of a city, whereas Taniel and Field Marshal are traveling the expanse of the world and dealing with big conflict, and Adamat is dealing with sort of the conspiracy side of things in the main town where the action takes place. So I found it tricky to like him, and my big gripe is that he's probably got the biggest sort of personal growth story going on. He's got a big quest, a big sort of personal mission that then in the last book gets sorted out in one paragraph at the very end, and it's not even him who sort of goes to the end of the quest. I don't want to say whether he succeeds or not, but it's someone else who deals with it, and we get told, oh yeah, you know that thing that you've been sort of for 1.5 books chasing and investigating? I've dealt with that, it's fine, we move on. And it felt a bit of a letdown for one of the main characters of the story. In terms of magic system, it was interesting. There's actually 4 different magic systems going on in the Powder Mage trilogy. Number 1, you've got your traditional wizards, and in this world they are super powerful. Like one wizard can pretty much destroy a whole army. And very weirdly, for some reason, because they are wizard or mage, the books make a point of letting us know that they got a really high sexual appetite, which bears no relevance to the story whatsoever, but just mention it, just gonna throw that there. They need a lot of sex for some reason. I don't know, just write it there. The next magic system that we get introduced to is very simple, very easy to get around. It's the Powder Mages, which seems like Mistborn into this world. Basically, the Powder Mages, they take gunpowder, they literally chew it, they eat it, and it enhances their senses, and they can actually control bullets, and they can sort of direct them, and they can make a bullet sort of bend and maybe kill 2 people with one shot and stuff like that. But as I said, it seems like the metals from Mistborn translated into this world. The third magic system is what Brian McClellan calls the knacked, and there's people that they're not powerful at all, but they have one knack, one particular sort of little power that makes them particularly suited for some tasks. So Adamat, our private investigator, surprise surprise, he's got photographic memory. He can remember any map, any letter, any document, seen it once. Another one of the characters, he doesn't need to sleep, so it makes him quite suited for the role of bodyguard of Field Marshal Thomas. So just little powers there. And the fourth and final magic system there is good old traditional voodoo. This magic is only practiced by some sort of wild people from another country that we don't get to visit. There's just one character that comes from the wildlands and uses kind of voodoo dolls and stuff like that. It's interesting to see all these different systems mixed up together, but there's nothing particularly new. It's just an aggregation, an amalgamation of things. Overall, I was a little bit disappointed. It really didn't do it for me. I read the books. They're fine. They're nice to read. The writing is not complicated. You can follow the plot easily. And maybe if you're more into that sort of flintlock fantasy type thing, it may be the thing for you, and that's fine. There's nothing intrinsically wrong with plot. There's no plot holes. The characters are not necessarily superpowered or majorly flawed or stupid or they do silly things. It's just that they left me a little bit waiting for more and hoping for more. I am aware that Brian has written another series, another books set in the same world, and actually I'm not curious enough. I'm not interested to get deeper into his world, into the Powder Mage realm. I think for me the Powder Mage Trilogy is enough. It's okay, certainly nothing to call home excited about, certainly nothing to throw away and discard, but another average fantasy series. So once again, thank you for watching. Please subscribe, comment, let me know how wrong am I, or if I got it right, or your opinions. Check my other videos, and I'll see you soon. Take care, bye.